Welcome to the Ring Post Daily Podcast. My name is Jesse Henrik, and I am joined today by Joey Hudson, the RPD Digital Media Champion, Tyreyk Ramsey, and from WWA, Ray Waddell. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good. Thank you guys for having me. And I think I want to challenge Tyreyk for that championship. What kind of belt you got over there?
You can challenge all you want. I'm defending against these two at WrestleMania, so
No, you are challenging against 3 at WrestleMania. Remember, we also have Mr. Siren joining us.
It's okay. I provide spoilers. That's how I keep my championship.
The RPD
pretty much this digital media title is where like we do WWE pay-per-view predictions and stuff, and like the winner with the most, whenever we can. But we do these pay-per-view predictions, and the winner with the most points is pretty much our digital media champ at the end of it. And Tyreyk he's scathed by with a few points here and there to beat us. But WrestleMania is gonna be different because we're talking about my Christmas, bro.
Nah.
Yeah, no, he's won. What is it? 3 or 4 pay-per-views we've had.
3.
Yeah, 3 straight pay-per-views. He's our inaugural champion so far. He's been our only champion.
Won the title at the Royal Rumble.
Y'all got to step it up.
Well, I had him on the ropes. If it wasn't for MJF screwing me over at the last AEW pay-per-view.
We're always asking these guys for advice for wrestling and stuff. We should probably ask them like, how you got any advice on taking Tyreyk down?
Right. So, Ray, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Let our listeners know kind of who you are, where you come from.
Ray Waddell, Central City, Kentucky, co-founder of the WWA World Wrestling Alliance. We're based out of Central City. We do shows in Livermore, Kentucky, Owensboro, Kentucky, Eddyville. We've done some shows in Paducah. We do Evansville, Indiana every month, and a few other places. I think I'm forgetting somewhere, but I get hit in the head a lot. But we travel a lot, and we've really just been going since 2010 now. We were all, well, not all of us, but all the guys who started it were backyard wrestlers. We eventually went through this whole ordeal where the Kentucky State Commission shut us down doing backyard wrestling, so we had to get licensed. And that's where we took our backyard company and started booking buildings and started running shows and been doing it ever since.
All right. So it's a true rags to riches story then, huh?
I wouldn't say riches, but we're having fun.
All right. So if we can just kind of get into things here, how did you get into the business? I know you said you're, a co-founder of WWA, but, that can't be where your career started. So kind of who is Ray Waddell in the business, and can you explain what it's like working, not only for, but, guiding WWA?
Who's Ray Waddell in the business? I don't know. Probably to most people a nobody, but just someone who really loves it. Like literally from 4 years old, I was starting on a trampoline, learning how to, bump. We didn't know what that meant back then, and then as we got older, we're running each other over with cars. We're bringing out light tubes, doing all the dumb shit. Can I cuss on here? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay. Doing all the dumb stuff teenagers do, and literally we just like, even when we were doing the backyard stuff, we started traveling up to like Illinois and Indiana and these other companies that we would just hit up, or we'd know someone that worked there. Looking back, a lot of them were just crappy indie shows, but they got our foot in the door and got us to meet some veterans and learn from them. And 2010 started doing our own shows, and then like 2 years down the line, once I felt like more confident, I started just traveling everywhere I could and wrestling everywhere I could with guys like Teddy King and guys like Stonewall, who you guys talked to. And, we've been everywhere from, Mississippi, Illinois, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, just anywhere we could go. And
now, didn't I see a video where you or your brother fought Matt Hardy?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I thought that was you.
I think I was 19, maybe, like 19 years old. I had no business in the ring with Matt Hardy. But, my brother was doing the booking then, and he was confident in it, and I was too stupid to say no. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'll wrestle Matt Hardy. Like, I was a Jeff Hardy guy growing up. I like both the Hardys, so I had this opportunity. And, I'm nervous as hell. The best thing was, like, at that point, I think the only other so-called name I'd wrestled was Jim Duggan, I believe. Oh, and maybe Tatanka. I think I'd wrestled them too. But that's a whole different match than Matt Hardy, because they come in and they're like, this is my formula. This is what's going to work. This is what we're going to do. And then you're just, your insert guy here, what
Yeah.
they're doing, they can do with anybody. So that's what I was used to. And Matt Hardy comes in and he's like, so what do you want to do, man? And I'm like, oh, whatever you want to do, sir. And he's just like, nah, what do you want to do? Like, he's like, I want your input. And I'm like, what? And, of course, in my head, I got a whole match laid out. I'm like, well, what if we did this? And like, I went to like, the most obvious thing is everyone in the world knows his finisher is the twist of fate. And when he hits it, he wins. So, and he was going over that night. So I'm just like, well, why don't we just tease your finish throughout the whole match? Like every time you try to go for it, I find a reversal. And I did a promo going into it saying like, Matt Hardy, I know everything about you, but you've never seen me. So it played off that I knew every reversal for the twist of fate till finally you hit it. And that was the 1, 2, 3. And like, I'd helped put that story together when I was really going in there just thinking Matt Hardy's going to tell me what to do and I'm just going to do what he says.
Yeah, no.
We're literally sitting there calling it and he goes, you guys have a ladder here? And I'm like, what? Like, I would never pitch that. But I'm like, of course we have a ladder here. Knowing in my head, if we don't, we'll get one here. Like, if I'm going to be able to use a ladder with Matt Hardy, like the dude who, repopularized it. So we ended up using a little ladder spot. Yeah, it was a good match. I think it's on YouTube somewhere if anyone wants to look it up. Back in my play their pants days, everyone went through that in wrestling, right?
Yeah, this is how I went back and did my fair share of WWE watching. Because that was one of the matches I saw, and the commentary was funny because they were like, Ray Waddell used to play with this dude's action figure, and now he's wrestling in him, and it's just like it's pretty crazy. I remember watching that match there, and I watched it all the way through, and I thought it was pretty solid, really.
Well, like even when I was playing with his action figure like 3 days before, like it wasn't when I was a kid, it was like when I was 19.
And like I remember them saying something too, like. If you watch the match, it wasn't even like it was Matt Hardy's WWE theme song, but they had a live band cover it. You could hear Matt Hardy's theme. It was a live band doing it. But yeah, dude, I've done my WWE history work.
And I think that was like 2014, maybe 2013, probably 2013. So I mean, yeah, you went back in the archives there.
So that's got to be post. WWE departure Matt Hardy, but pre-TNA Matt Hardy?
Yeah, it was. I think it was like when he was in Ring of Honor there for a minute, and he was about to go to Impact. He might have just shown up in Impact, but I don't think he was like full time yet. It was like kind of probably a year or two before all the broken stuff popped off. I think
Yeah, so that's pre-TNA.
So it was in between.
Yeah, no, that's got to be so interesting. Obviously working sort of. I'm going to use this term loosely, but, the old territory guys with, Jim Duggan and, Tatanka, and then to move on to the creative genius that is Matt Hardy. I mean, that's got to be a true come to Jesus moment for any wrestler, let alone an indie wrestler. So, I mean,
it was definitely,
that's awesome.
It was definitely different. And if Tatanka ever goes to chop you, make sure you hop, because he chopped me in the throat every single time he chopped me. I started jumping up in the air, and I started warning our guys when we bring him back. I said, if he goes to chop you better get on your tiptoes or you're taking him to the throat.
He's a deceptively short wrestler, yeah.
And he's strong. Like, at the time I wrestled him, I think I was 340, and he would use the Samoan drop as his finisher, and he was like, then I'll hit, I think he called it like Trail's End or something like that, something to do with his gimmick. And he was like, well, let me see if I can get you up. And before I could even help him, he just snatched me up over his shoulders and threw me back on my feet and said, yeah, I got you. And I'm just like, man, this guy's strong. And he's already in his 50s at that point, I'd say.
All right.
Right. So, Ray, besides yourself, of course, who's in Ray Waddell's wrestling Mount Rushmore?
Well, I wouldn't put myself in it to begin with. I thought about this, and
come on, if you ain't the world champ, if you ain't aiming for the world champion or the Mount Rushmore, the Hall of Fame, what are you doing in wrestling? That's what Dusty always used to say. If you don't see yourself as the top.
I've always tried to be humble in the sense that I don't want to say that about myself. Like, if I ever got good enough, someone else did, that'd be cool. But I just feel like if like even the Undertaker did an interview and he didn't put himself on the Mount Rushmore, even though he's on just about everybody's in the world. So it's like, you don't want to put yourself on it unless you're just an asshole. But for a long time, Chris Jericho was my favorite wrestler. I'm not the biggest fan of what he's doing these days, but I'd have to put him on there. I'd have to put Shawn Michaels on there. I'd have to put The Undertaker, of course, and probably Steve Austin, as far as my life goes. You know, if you look at it from a box office standpoint, as opposed to my opinion, there'd be a whole different list. There'd be the Hogans and the Flairs and the, you know, Bruno Sammartinos. But my personal favorites growing up were those four.
All right, yeah, no,
That was
That's a
before I
great
got into
mount.
indie wrestling, and I could do a whole Mount Rushmore of indie wrestlers, or you know, guys like that. That'd be totally different. You know.
yeah.
Not only is that a great Mount Rushmore, but I think that's like
I
probably like out of 10 interviews that have said Undertaker.
Yeah.
I was about to say I think that's the Undertaker's going up to like 4 or 5-0 of wrestlers back to back, putting him on their Mount
You just
Rushmore.
gotta think though, like he's been around like what the last 30 years, so anyone within our age range is gonna see every incarnation of Undertaker, and it's really hard
Oh
not, you know
yeah.
what I'm saying, and everything he ever did got over, so it's like it's really hard to not put him on that list.
And what's
Sure.
interesting too about his career, especially, is we hear his name come up a lot, but it seems like it's always a different version of Undertaker that people sort of idolize and put on
True.
that Mount Rushmore, because he's had
For
so
sure.
many gimmick changes over the course of his 30-year career. So I mean, he always sort of had his finger on the pulse of wrestling, and that really shows through his fan base. No matter what sort of age group they sit in, different versions of him resonated with people.
Oh, for sure.
There's only
Yep.
one wrestler other than The Undertaker I know that can actually do a full gimmick change and get away with it. It's Chris Jericho.
Yeah,
Chris Jericho and Undertaker, they're like two guys that can totally reinvent themselves completely and still get heat or get hate or whatever, but like, they still stay relevant. Like, I mean, people say that Undertaker went from like badass to dead man to Lord of Darkness and all this stuff, but Jericho, where he came from to you just made the list and all that stuff, like
yeah,
Jericho's up there with him on that level.
And
yeah.
I'd almost throw Mick Foley on that list too, if there was like an extra head on Mount
Yeah,
Rushmore. I
for
feel like he
sure.
doesn't get loved. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got me thinking about the different gimmicks and him getting over in every gimmick he did, plus all he gave to wrestling.
Oh,
He was a good, and like my thing is the promo guys. Like, there's a lot of great wrestlers, but I've always thought that you connect to a crowd through talking more so than taking moves. So a Mick Foley or Cactus Jack promo would make you feel something, and I feel like that's what wrestling's about more so than doing the coolest move you can do, which I love doing cool moves and seeing that stuff too. But I feel like even if someone's great in the ring, once they grab the microphone, if they're not good, I automatically am just kind of like, I watch their matches, but I'm not that into them.
That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things about wrestling is, always just like no matter what feeling it is, that moment of I'd say chills almost. It's like,
Yeah.
those big moments where they do make you feel to that extent of, having chills down your spine and goosebumps and all that stuff. That's what I love most.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at guys like like the Mick Foleys or Undertakers, and then especially like the Jake the Snake Roberts of the world. Where he always spoke so softly. He was such a strange promo, but you always wanted to listen to what he heard. So even though he was speaking softly, he was always very intimidating, very brooding, and so that's what kind of made him stand out.
Quick question for you: am I the only guest you've had that's been DDT'd by Jake the Snake Roberts?
Think
More
so.
than likely.
Yep, pretty sure.
As far as our knowledge, yeah.
The same match where I wrestled Tatanka, we had Jake on the show, and he had come out earlier in the night, and this was right when he had got clean. Like, he still had the long hair, but he was doing the whole DDP thing, got clean.
That's
He come
awesome.
out doing a promo. I was the top heel at the time. I went out there, beat him up, and he told me, he was like, lay it in, spit on me. He said, if you take it easy on me, when I come back, it's going to be worse. So I'm sitting there just beating the hell out of this man, spitting on him. And then later in the main event, the ref gets bumped, of course. Jake hits the ring, hits me with the DDT. Tatanka pins me. So, like, there was also at that same show, we had Hacksaw Jim Duggan again. And right as he's going through the curtain, Jake's sitting at right by the curtain. As Jake's walking through, he pantses him. And, like, he's halfway through the curtain. And, like, his whole ass, and no telling what you saw in the front, was out. And I was just like, man, these guys are like in their 50s or 60s, and they're still just like young guys ribbing each other.
That's amazing.
Imagine the locker room in WWE in like the 80s and 90s. Just guys
That's hands
goofing
for me.
off. So, professional wrestling is like a physically demanding sport that is pretty clear, but how do you prepare yourself before a match?
At this point, I'm like 32 or 33. I'm not really sure. You quit keeping up with it after a while. Really, I just stretch. Like, as you can probably tell if you've ever seen me wrestle, I'm not the gym guy, you know. I just, do it's more of maintenance for me, like stretch just to make sure you don't get hurt to get through the next match, you know. And just training in the ring. Like, a lot of the guys you'll see on our shows are guys that myself and a few others have trained throughout the years. Like, especially until the last couple of years. Before that, I was hands on with just about everyone who come to our company. So just getting in there, working on things, and just staying in ring shape has probably helped me more than anything.
A side question I just wanted to know because I haven't seen it. Has there been a match where you and your brother fought each other?
Oh yeah, yeah. It happens probably once or twice a year, and for some reason, it always works out pretty good. Like, that's kind of how it started. The main event of our first show in 2010 was me against my brother. The main event of the second show was me against my brother in a ladder match. And then in 2015, we did a hardcore match where his girlfriend at the time, I gave her a razor's edge into a pile driver and about broke her neck. And we did a whole angle where we were fighting and my mother got in the ring to stop us from fighting. And I went to hit him and he moved and I punched my mom in the face.
Oh
like,
my God.
Yeah. So right now, currently, we're on two different sides of two different factions. So yeah, we fight more than we team up, and that's in real life too. So it works out.
Crazy, because this sounds like some Vince McMahon storyline shit. It does. Like, go out there and slap your mom.
I'm just
It was
envisioning.
perfect, man.
I'm just envisioning Shelton Benjamin's mom, coming to the
Ain't
ring
that big.
and just getting like, slapped by Ray Waddell.
It worked perfect because she was running the door of the show, so every fan that come in there knew my mom,
Oh my God.
and she never got involved before the end. So once she got in the ring, they're like, okay, this is a show, but this is real,
This is a shoot.
And I told her, I was like, Mom, I can't take it easy on you. I'm gonna be stiff. I'm gonna punch you right in the jaw, Had to teach her what it's like to be in the business,
And
now I have to.
And how did she take it? Did she
Oh,
take it
she
like a
did
champ?
great. She freaked me out because she goes down just like in a heap. And of course, like, I got to get out of there because now my brother's pissed and I'm even showing like, oh, I'm worried to let him know, oh, this is real. Like, he's not doing that on purpose. And then as they're bringing her to the back, I look through the curtain and she's crying and I'm like, oh no, I didn't lay her out for real. And then she gets back there. She's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm just acting. I'm like, where'd you learn this at?
She's told the move.
So I always have these like Vince Russo ideas, and I have to throw my Vince Russo idea out there. But I think it'd be cool if you did a gimmick where, since you said you slapped your own mom, if for some reason your opponent's mom, like every match, was sitting there and chanting her son on, and you just went up to her and smacked her right in the face, like like the mom slapper, dude, like
The mom slapper.
That's what I'm saying is that if I was
So what you're pitching is essentially the Great Khali kiss cam, but instead of a kiss, it's just Ray Waddell slapping random people's mothers.
Yeah, it's like going out there and be like, "Oh, that's your son. You're a fan. Slap, slap.
Well,
Your
they are
stepmom, slap."
Those are the most fun people to talk crap to when you know that someone's wife or mom's in the front row and you're just beating the hell out of them and you can look right at them and say, "Is this your boy?"
your boy.
Like imagine like his opponent's mom, stepmom, and grandma's all in the front row, and he just goes slap, slap, slap,
Might turn into
triple
a
slap.
battle.
Like that would be something cool because like as a fan, you'd be like, "Dude, he just slapped 3 ladies."
Till they get
But
back
here's
up and I gotta run.
That's my Vince Russo idea for the day, though.
I've been told that I book like Vince Russo at some points whenever I pitch ideas too, so there's no shame in that.
This portion of the Ring Post Daily Podcast is brought to you by Traditional Southern Wrestling, coming to you live April 15th at the Anvil Christian Academy in Anvil, Kentucky. So what made you choose WWE? Obviously you're co-creator, what have you. We got that, but obviously you're a veteran at this point. You could probably move on to a bigger promotion, or go traveling like a lot of veterans do. Whether it's Japan, Mexico, what have you. So what kind of keeps you grounded in WWE? What makes you stick around there as much as you do?
I think it's just being more hands-on with things. A lot of places you'll go in the locker room and you'll say hello to everyone and you'll sit there till your match. Then after your match, you'll sit there till the show's over or till you get paid or whatever, and you'll leave. I like the aspect of working with rookies and training people. Sometimes it's very frustrating, but I like that aspect. I like the aspect of being involved in the booking and the creative. I like the aspect of having like control and being the guy that like not full control, but like the guy that people can come to and ask ideas. And like I don't always come up with the best ideas, but I feel like I'm good at someone telling me their idea and just tweaking it enough to where they go, "Oh, I never thought about that." Like almost like agenting or producing. Like I just like kind of having my hands in everything at the shows as opposed to just kind of sitting there bored. And I still do travel. Like there's still places that I'll travel to, and if I had an opportunity to go to Mexico or Japan, I'd jump right on that. But like, you know, I want to also make our company bigger and bigger as opposed to only worrying about myself, and it might not be during my in-ring career, but say I retire and in 25 years or something, we got a TV deal or something like that. I know we were like the foundation of that. And I just feel like our company's a lot of really close friends and a lot of people who like other people wouldn't give an opportunity to, like a lot of this guy's too small, this guy's too fat, this guy's this, and like we try to welcome everyone, no matter what walk of life people are from, and we try to build strong bonds with people as opposed to just being a guy that comes in and gets an envelope and leaves, So I really enjoy that bond.
All right, so I hear you saying you're working with rookies, but what I'm hearing in my mind is you work with children. so,
huh?
Yeah. I was about to say, should we send you some muffins to help deal with that?
I mean, I could do a rant if you really needed a rant, but I mean, that'd be more vulgar than the story I told earlier,
Nah, you gotta, I mean, I understand because, like, you've worked with so many of these guys at WBA, like, anywhere you work, like, you worked it for a long period of time. Before you know it, you start, like, to become your friends or your family, and, you just feel comfortable there.
All right, ready? Move on here.
All right, I think we are.
Yep. So, Ray, what goes into crafting the storylines and character arcs for your matches, and how do you work with other wrestlers and the creative team to develop your character and create memorable moments for the fans?
A lot of the creative team will consist of my brother, myself, Alexander Knight, and maybe a Munchie or like a step in. Sometimes we'll have a different fourth guy. Sometimes it'll just be me and my brother sitting at a huddle house with a notebook, drinking coffee, and planning months of professional wrestling. And of course, it don't always happen now. You want it to. You got to be able to work on the fly with things. But a lot of things is just we've watched so much wrestling. We've been fans so long. And I feel like not, I just said I don't want to put myself over, but I feel like both of us kind of have a mind for it. Like even Matt Hardy, when I put that match together and told him about it, he was like, "You got a good mind for wrestling, And I think, like I was saying about promos earlier, I feel like storytelling is also more important than moves. Like, and not only what the booker books, but the story you tell in your match. A lot of matches got the same formula. A lot of matches are just hit your coolest moves, and that's cool too for certain shows. But like sometimes it's really cool when someone works a body part and that actually leads to why the guy loses or leads to why the guy wins, as opposed to just doing it 'cause this is what we're supposed to do,
Yeah,
So
that's sort of a
I
lost
try to
art
tell a
form.
story within matches. But I've also had my stints where I'm just like, let's do everything we know. Backwards Hurricane Rondas, Canadian Destroyers, whatever, and you also got to play to your crowd. There's some shows I work on where that's what they want. Like, why would I go out there and not do what they want? And that's just the important part of watching matches before you and kind of getting a vibe for what people are biting for.
All right. And just out of curiosity, how involved are you with the creative as far as like, not only booking your matches, but also, booking everybody else's?
I'm very involved in pitching ideas. They just all get said no to. Not all of them. Not all of them. But I think I'm like they always say Vince Russo had 100 ideas and Vince said no to 99 of them. Like, I feel like I'm the Vince Russo. My brother's the Vince McMahon. Like, in my head, they're great ideas, but most of the time he doesn't agree. But we work together on stuff like that. And every now and then I got to talk him out of a bad one too.
What's the craziest idea you've ever had? What's the one that you were told emphatically no to that you really wanted to do?
That's a good
For
question.
a long time, I was a heel inception in like 2010 all the way to 2017. And I was getting bored with it. And like I started watching wrestling in a different sense to where like I was watching how people sold, like how they sold each move. And I feel like as a babyface, you get to sell more in my head, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have a more realistic selling style. And I was pitching like, let me turn babyface. And my brother's like, it'll never work. Cause I had a lot of heat back then because I just didn't care what happened to me. You know what I mean? Like I would just push boundaries till people spit on me or hit me, whatever. I was like, I want to get stabbed. I was like, I watched I was young and dumb. I watched Roddy Piper talk about getting stabbed as a heel, and I was like, that's my goal. I don't want to die. I just want to get stabbed just so I can say, like, I'm with Roddy Piper and those type of guys. It never happened, thankfully. But my brother was just like, you can never be a babyface. They'll never believe it, you know? And then when I did finally turn babyface, finally convince him to, it just took off. And, you know, then I stayed babyface all the way up until the end of the first of this year. So it paid off. Good idea.
That reminds me of the Dudleys back in ECW. It's like people legitimately would hate them and, you know, just throw things at them and just try to get under their skin and, you know, but they're, you know, because sometimes, you know, there's a good heel and he's still kind of loved. Like he's so good at what he does that he's kind of loved almost and like almost I'd say polarizing. But,
yeah,
you know, those guys, they're definitely like, everybody didn't like them.
Yeah.
And it kind of
it was harder on these family-friendly shows. You know, the Dudley Boys are on ECW where they can say the mother taught the daughter how to blank. You know, like you can't say that in Kentucky. They'll take your license. So I had to be more creative on the things I said.
Really?
That's another thing I've noticed about all of you. Kind of, I don't want to lump you all together because you're not all the same. But one thing I've noticed is with Kentucky wrestlers, it seems like y'all are very family-friendly. So I mean, you know, is that just a product of being in the Kentucky area?
I think that like there's a lot of regulations in Kentucky, like as far as blood and stuff like that. It's like you have to sit in blood work beforehand. So, you know, you're not going to have a full death match show of people hitting each other with light tubes with no testing like you will other places, you know.
Yeah.
And they got certain regulations like your guardrail or whatever has to be so far from the ring. You know, they've got a little more lax on it lately. Ever since the pandemic, they've calmed down a lot. There is drug testing and stuff in Kentucky, and like so that we try to ride that fine line of like you can bring your kids to this, but you can also bring your 17-year-old son and he'll still think it's cool, you know. So you almost want that PG-14 as opposed to like, you know, watered down like we got to be nice because there's children here. Like it's still real life, you know. Like there's gonna be someone say damn or ass, but you're not gonna have, you know, people out there naked or bleeding everywhere, you know.
Well, hey, the WWA show I went to, you know, I had fun at it. I had just as much fun at it as I would at a WWE event. And in Vanderpoop and everything. Like, it was fun. But no, if you want to talk about, I want to get stabbed, you go with my slapping mother gimmicks and you might come close to it.
How do I get stabbed without getting sued? Because I think you're just going to get me sued.
I didn't say I didn't say that all my ideas were fully thought through. Sound good on paper. So, what Jesse's question was too. One of my questions, piggybacking off his, is feel like when you have like a idea and you see it like come out to play and everything, like what's it like to see one of your ideas come to life?
That's amazing. Like there's been so many times we sit there and we're like, would this work? And then we book a whole angle around it. And sometimes it'll be people who like maybe haven't had that big push or maybe haven't like had experience, you know, like some of our older guys, you kind of know, book them in anything, they'll make it work, you know. But then there's times you got this great idea and you're like, but can they pull it off, you know? And then when I say, you know, a lot, I'm sorry. But when they finally do, it's like you see your whole like idea come to fruition, however you say that word. And it's like everything pays off. You know, it makes like setting a huddle house or my brother's house for 4 hours, putting together a show. It makes it worth it when you finally see that big reaction to that moment that you've seen play out in your head for a month.
Makes you think this is what Vince feels like.
That's another thing I like about the whole creative part of just wrestling in general. I talked about the emotion and the chills part, but right under that would probably be like because you know I am the RPD Digital Media Championship, so but I enjoy doing the whole I enjoy doing the whole like thinking deeper and thinking of where the story will go at the pay-per-view, or what I think might or should happen. And it's like it's almost like I like paying attention to the little details of the storytelling. It's like, okay, he said this, but why did he say it this way? Like, he said it a certain way, and that may have something to do with. That's why I've been enjoying the whole Roman and Sammy, Cody, all that little circle. But yeah.
Do you keep up with like today's current product?
I wouldn't say I watch it every week. Like, most of the stuff I do see will be through Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, the big ones, I'll watch those. Like, I paid for the last AEW pay-per-view, but it's not something that I watch every week, Not anymore. It used to be like every single week I'd record it on a VHS and then watch Raw throughout the week 3 or 4 times and then record over it the next week and do it again, Once you get into it, it's a little different, but I still love it. Like, it's just different from what I'm like used to and what I fell in love with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that is because this is a question that I had to throw in, at least until Roman loses the championship, which I hope never happens. But as a fan and a wrestler, do you acknowledge your tribal chief, Roman Reigns?
I'm sorry for this.
Can you define acknowledge?
Do you accept him? Like, everything he's done lately has been killer. Like, this whole championship reign will never be duplicated, never be copied and pasted. Everything Roman's done in this tribal chief era, I like to call it, like, do you acknowledge it? Are you one of the people that goes, I get it?
I do think that currently Roman Reigns is part of one of the most interesting stories in the last few years. So if that means I acknowledge him, I suppose so. I've never been to his tribe or his table, but I would say that he's doing a great job. And I think that people need to almost realize that he's the one out there performing it, but there's someone back there writing these stories. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these people in the back that are working to, like, get this stuff over, and then everyone, like, I do think it was natural that how Sami Zayn got over, but like, think of the way he's been booked. Like, he's been put in positions to get over. Like, that's what it's all about. That's how you got someone who knows what they're doing behind the scenes, because I don't know who is even writing it. I don't know if it's Triple H or a creative team or Vince or whoever, but they're doing a good job. And, well, that's how guys get over, and that's how people draw money.
The one who's been credited, I think, the most with writing that whole story has actually been Michael P.S. Hayes. And I mean, he's been in the business for, 30 plus years. So, I mean, I would hope that he knows what he's doing. But yeah, he's been doing a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, whoever's doing it.
Had what?
Whoever's in charge of that's killing it. They're doing a good job. So I guess I do acknowledge Roman Reigns as whatever the hell he is.
Tribal chief, head of the table, you name it. No, the reason I ask that is because when Roman loses the title at one point, he can hold the title again, but it will never hit like this reign did. So this reign is something special, like a special time in wrestling that we're living in. My whole goal behind this question is once he loses the belt, we stop asking that question. It's taken out of the question list. So until he loses it, you and everyone else is being asked if they acknowledge their tribal chief. Because I do.
Joey, we all know your true purpose behind asking these questions is just so that you hope Roman sees this and sends you a bottle of his bathwater or something. We know that's the true purpose.
It would be cool though if Roman saw these and was like, dude, through every episode until I lost my title, they were asking this. Like, I was doing something right, but like, no, like, I acknowledge him, so I just have to know from a standpoint if other people do too, wrestler or fan.
Could you imagine seeing that?
No, Roman's great.
Could you imagine seeing that on WWE Shop, Tribal Chief Bathwater?
I'd buy it.
Like I said, someone will buy it. Someone would buy it.
Somebody would
buy it.
All right. So, who is someone in your life that kind of inspired you to become a professional wrestler? Obviously you're in the trenches there with your brother. Was there somebody else in your family, or was it somebody you possibly met that kind of drew you guys to starting the backyard wrestling and then your own promotion?
It's kind of crazy because, like, I feel like I mean, obviously, as a 4-year-old, I wasn't having full-fledged matches, but at 4 years old, I was out there with my Macho Man Hulk Hogan wrestling buddies on the trampoline, and me and my brother was kicking their asses, you know? So I feel like as long as I can remember, like I've just been wrestling, you know what I mean? Like different levels, like trampoline wrestling, whatever. But like we were doing the trampoline thing all the way up until 2004, and at that point I'm 14, you know, and we're too damn big for a trampoline, you know. And my brother had met Shelby Adcock, who was a local promoter years ago, like the early 90s. We'd go to see his shows downtown in Central City, and he had a ring, and he was like, "I'll sell you this ring for," I think it was 2,500 starting off. And we're like, "This is an actual wrestling ring," you know? So we're like hyped, but we're like, "Where do we get $2,500?" And we talked to my mom, and she said, "Go down there and ask him if he'll take payments." So we talked to him. I think we put 500 down, and then we paid payments every month. We gave him $100, and that was us saving lunch money, because you know she wanted us to pay for it ourselves. She wanted to be ours, you know, and she'd help us and stuff. But my brother would steal my lunch money all month. He'd go. We finally paid the ring off, and we had our own ring in our backyard, and then we used that for the next 6 years. So
That's
and
amazing.
we still got
Really
that
does
ring.
sound like your brother really does sound like Vince McMahon.
The Vince McMahon of Kentucky Indies.
That is something I can. That is something I can see Vince McMahon doing, stealing his own kids, like his own brother or his own kids, like lunch money. Like, damn it, it's for the company.
Yeah, I'd always rip him about it. I said, "You stole my lunch money for years, and I still got fat. What happened?"
You know, you can't say that all these years later it wasn't worth it, because look where it got you.
Definitely, man. Definitely. That ring's still in my backyard right now. Not up, but we still got it. So I don't know if we'll ever sell it.
In the wake of Loggate, did you guys ever have to use a log to hold up the ring?
Come on.
Oh, just one log holding up the ring is nothing. At RPW in Metropolis, Illinois, they had logs holding up the ring in the middle. It wasn't on the side. It was literally where you bump at, and the ring didn't move. So when I see everyone on the internet freaking out about a log on the side, I'm like, look, every independent wrestler who's traveled out of their states going, that ain't nothing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I've been on some bad rings, man.
It's so amazing how that one thing just, it didn't matter if you were a deathmatch wrestler, indie wrestler, professional, what have you. That one singular thing brought the entire wrestling community together, just to rally.
Just to be mad about a log.
Yeah, whether it was support, whether it was to show outrage, what have you, or just for the memes. Honestly, it's just it was Loggate.
I think we should have did a GoFundMe for him. Buy him a new ring, damn.
Just imagine like being in that moment, like what are we gonna do? And you put a log there, and you're like, man, we were really stumped.
Joey, you're not allowed to tell jokes like that. You don't have children.
I'm a doggy daddy, so that counts for something. Damn it. Yeah, he's over here saying I was gonna say you being a wrestler, you've probably seen crazier stuff than a log, being used as a part of the ring. I mean, like we said earlier, you've seen certain things hanging from the ring corner, so you've seen a lot of things.
We never got there. They stole it. We never even got to put it on the pole. We never put the pole on the pole. You know what I mean?
So if you didn't put that on the pole, what did you replace that certain item with?
I don't think we even did the match. I think at that point we were just disheartened. We're like, that's the payoff. Like why even do the match? And we didn't go buy another $50, you know what,
I think my wife just handed me your lost dildo.
Oh no! Where's that been all these years?
Jesse stole it.
Got it.
Now, if I ever go to a WWA show, I'm gonna show up with one of them things and be like, "Hey Ray, sign it."
It better still be in the package, or I ain't touching it.
Ain't gonna be used or nothing. It ain't that gross.
I don't know you that well, buddy. It better be in the package.
Let me borrow you. You know what?
Oh no!
Dear Lord.
So Ray, is there a championship outside or inside of WWA, excuse me, that you'd love to hold one day that you haven't yet?
As far as like the near future, I'd love to pick up a championship in AFU Hardcore in Metropolis, Illinois. I'm usually at every one of their shows since they started a couple years back. They do a lot of hardcore wrestling, but they also have a ton of like really good wrestlers and like a cool fan base. So I'd love to pick up some gold there eventually. I mean, obviously, like if WWE or any of those came calling, of course I'd love to go there. But yeah, as far as like places I'm working right now, I'm currently the WWE National Champion, and I'd love to just win every championship. That's actually our goal in the group I'm in, is we're going to win every championship. So,
Nice.
but yeah, AFU Hardcore, check them out too in Metropolis, Illinois. I believe Stonewall pitched a little bit for him too. He works up there a lot.
You know, we did just speak with Vanderpool last episode here, and he was talking. Yeah,
was he
week.
British?
No, he wasn't British. But he did.
I don't know where that went.
He did talk about wanting to get rid of his tag titles, so maybe you guys could figure out a way to get those.
Well, in our current storyline, we've been pitching for Vanderpool to join our group because he has that tag team championship, and he still hasn't given us an answer. So,
okay.
Yeah, we got a lot of long, drawn out storylines going on right now.
Yeah, for those listening.
Funny. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Oh no!
Oh shit!
Picture's falling off the wall,
See,
boy. Dang.
Even Seth Rollins is mad at you for interrupting me.
Yeah.
No, for those listening at home, unfortunately, we didn't have an episode last week because Vanderpool, unfortunately, his audio got corrupted. But one thing we talked about...
The signal was bad from Brenton.
Yeah. But one thing we talked about a lot on that episode was his tag team situation, and one thing we pitched to him was maybe working in a finger poke of doom or something along the lines of that, just to get rid of those tag team titles for him, because he really doesn't seem to want them no more.
No, he doesn't. But the problem is his partner is a man he turned on. So to either keep him or lose him, he's going to have to team with a guy who hates him. So we got to see where that goes.
No, I think in one of his recent matches, I saw on YouTube, he Tyler went through the whole match on his own, pretty much a handicap match, and then he shows up the last minute. I think they won after that. I didn't really see the ending too much, but I think that's what happened.
Yeah, your boy Vanderpool got in the ring as Tyler had the match won and hit Tyler in the back of the head with the belt. Then he hit the other guy in the face with the belt and just put Tyler on top of him. So he keep his championship, but he still made his point. What a heel!
All right, so Mr. Five Finger Discount, why don't you take us home here?
So the last question we always ask everyone is, what advice would you give someone who wants to get into the wrestling business? Commentators, referees, behind the scenes wrestling. What would you offer them as advice?
Simply, I'd say watch and listen, because I feel like as far as formal training, I was never really formally trained. Like later on, after I was already doing shows, I learned from different people and stuff, but I never went through a training school. But I watched so much wrestling that I pretty much taught myself a ton of things, even watching wrestling seminars and stuff like that. So like, and then, you know, when you meet guys like Tracy Smothers or something and you start picking their brain and they start giving you advice, they start, you know, helping you out, or you meet these legends and you wrestle them and then they tell you like, hey, you held your own out there. Here's some advice, work on this. Like, it's just kind of, just don't come into wrestling with like any ego or any attitude, because that's the quickest way to get thrown out of wrestling, in my opinion. We have new people come in, I automatically usually know if they're going to last or if they're not. I can kind of, you know, not always right, but you know what I'm saying? You can get a vibe off someone pretty quick to know if they have the attitude for it, because it's a selfless job. Like, out of all the people who's going to become an independent wrestler, a very small minority is actually going to get rich off of this and make a living off of it. So if you're doing it, you better do it because you love it, or else you're wasting your time. So, you know, you can quickly, I just wouldn't waste your time if you're not okay with maybe not making it, because a lot of people don't, you know. So just listen to people with experience, like whether it's commentary or even watching stuff and listen to a Jim Ross or something when he's really calling a match. That can show you, I mean, you don't want to rip them off, but as Jim Cornette says, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism, but if you steal from a bunch, it's research. So just take things you like, put them together, and make them your own. You can take a simple move and hardly tweak it. Now it's yours. You don't got to do exactly what everyone else.
Exactly, like I did with that cardboard. You know, I took it and made it my own.
Yeah, you're a thief.
Not the same thing, Joey. Not the same thing.
Here, I am calling the police. I will call the police.
I think that's what a lot of you know, when we ask that question about giving advice to new and upcoming wrestlers, that's a lot of what we hear is a lot of one, you have to love it and make sure you love it and you're willing to stay in it, and also just to be coachable and ask questions and listen more than anything.
I got a question for you guys. Are you Brett or Sean guys? What would you be?
I'm a Sean guy.
Sean. I'm a Sean guy.
I'm a Sean guy, but I do respect Brett for what he did.
Yes, and
I'm a Sean guy too.
But
I think a lot of it's because of his second run, like when he come back from the back injury.
That
you don't
is
mean
also true.
I'm gonna say you're not talking about that match he did with the Brothers of Destruction and stuff in Saudi,
no.
right?
Yeah, I never watched that. I never
watched it either.
So here's my stance on the Sean versus Brett thing, like as careers. You know, when it comes to just pure technical wrestling, you know, I would say Sean's got, Brett's got Sean beat, day after day. But professional wrestling is not just about the moves you can do and the technical, skills you have. You have a whole, array of audience members to entertain and to appeal to. So Sean, he kind of encompassed that. He did the entertainment. He did, the technical stuff. He did spectacle. Whereas, you can even look at even some of Brett's best matches, is he entertaining or is he, charismatic? Maybe. But he's not anywhere close to the entertainer that Shawn Michaels, to the absolute charisma machine that Shawn Michaels was. And that's whether or not you're talking about, Shawn after he came back from his, all his back problems and, finding his smile and whatnot. That was Shawn his entire career, even going back to when he was with the Rockers. Shawn was always a standout when it came to being an entertainer, whereas Brett, he really had to, kind of fight to learn how to be an entertainer, where, his technical skill carried him a lot. In my opinion.
If Roman retains his titles at WrestleMania, you know where you'll find my smile right here on this podcast.
Joey, shut up about Roman. Shut up.
Anyway, back into the Sean. I love Sean's storytelling in the ring. Let's get back on the Sean train.
That Sean Jericho angle from 2008, like that whole era was just, and that was magic. I feel like now they're getting back to that type of storytelling again. For a long time, it was missing.
All right. Wow. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Ray, it's been a pleasure having you on. Would you like to kind of let our listeners know where to find you, whether it's your socials, whether it's WWA? Of course, we'll have all of the links to WWA's socials and everything down in the comments or down in the description below. But where can they find you?
Well, it's the Southpaw Hotshot, the Man Bun Mastodon, the Superstar Ray Waddell, the current WWA National Champion. You can find me on all social media at Ray Waddell WWA. Waddell is spelled WADDELL.
Oh my God!
Right.
And everything WWA is at WWA is now. We got a Patreon you can join. So yeah, hit up the socials, holler at us.
Jeff Jarrett's gonna come in.
I gotta ask, how many times did you practice that in the mirror before you got it correct?
Oh, I mean, I'm just, that's just natural, baby.